This program does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of the City of Oceanside, its elected officials, KOCT, its board of directors, or staff.
Hello and welcome to Faith and the Common Good, brought to you by North Coast United Methodist Church. I'm your host, Pastor Harris. Today we talk about the continuing concern of homelessness in our community, homelessness throughout the country, and homelessness actually throughout the world. The primary question that we might ask is there ever an end to this ongoing concern? Today we visit with an agency that has for 29 years now offered a solution to the concern in our area by providing ways for persons to be considered in their human fullness, as well as providing a respite from the street and the other places where homeless persons are gathered. The Interfaith Shelter Network is in our community in 7 areas around our county, and so today we are very fortunate to be able to be in conversation with the coordinator of the program, with our representative of the outreach work, as well as the general understanding of the issues in our particular area. So we welcome to the table today Tanya Rome and Bill Zucconi. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
We're so happy that you have come today to talk with us specifically about the issue of homelessness in our area. I understand that your work is funded in part by the cities around this area, including the city of Oceanside as well as the city of San Marcos in the North County area. Well, firstly, would you tell us about Interfaith Shelter Network?
Yes, the Interfaith Shelter Network is a coordinated effort among several congregations throughout San Diego County. How it works is we have 7 different regions, and within each region a congregation will agree to host the shelter for 2 weeks. Once that 2 weeks is up, the shelter will move, and all of the clients will move with it to another congregation, but within the same regional area. Okay. While individuals are in the shelter, they get a hot family-style meal at night. They get breakfast in the morning. It is only a night shelter, so people have to leave at about 6 in the evening, 6 to 7 in the morning, and then they check back in at 5:30 in the evening. So during the day, they're also given a sack lunch to take with them, and so they have something to eat during the day.
And how many persons are being served in this rotation?
Well, in the entire rotation, we've served about 260 people this season. Each congregation hosts up to 12 people. Sometimes they can go, if it's a larger congregation, they can go a little bit higher. They might take 13 or 14, particularly if it's a family with small children.
And since we're speaking of interfaith, we want to make sure that our audience understands that it's not just a Protestant congregation, but these are all faiths that participate in the interfaith work of providing shelter for persons.
Yes, it is. It is a truly interfaith. We have Catholics, Lutherans, Methodists, Episcopalians, as well as a Unitarian, non-denominational. The congregation just has to have a desire to want to help out with the homeless community.
And are there specific requirements for the congregation with regard to the size of the space or other options that would be of service in the rotation?
Yes, they have to have enough space to house or to bed 12 individuals. They also have to have facilities, a kitchen facility, not necessarily for cooking, but somewhere where food can be brought to serve people, as well as shower facilities.
What do you do specifically?
Okay. Well, as the shelter coordinator, I'm the one that makes the schedule and deals directly with the the host coordinators at the different locations to make sure that things are going smoothly, that they have everything they need. Sometimes they're short on volunteers, and we help with getting volunteers because it's basically a volunteer-run program. So sometimes they need overnight hosts, sometimes they need people to bring in meals, and so all that's covered. And you know, of course, if issues come up, then I'm there to help address them as well.
Oh, certainly. Let me ask you then a personal question. Why is it you do what you do?
Well, I have a desire to help people. I always have. That's been my career, basically, has been helping people. I've worked in the social service field in the past, as well as public health. And I got involved with Interfaith Shelter Network because it's also part of the tenets of our faith as Christians to want to help people that are less fortunate. Yeah.
Well, Tanya or Bill, a question for either of you addressing the issue as you see it in our particular area. And you cover a pretty broad area, 7 branches throughout San Diego County, including what is called North County Coastal, which would be the Oceanside and surrounding area. Can you look at the general issue from a statistical basis and give us a sense of what you're seeing as the need in our area?
Okay. Well, the population that we deal with at Interfaith Shelter Network are sometimes referred to as the invisible homeless. The people that come through our program are not individuals that you might see on the street with us holding a sign or pushing a shopping cart. The individuals that we help are people that are generally down on their luck. Maybe they've had an eviction. 50% of our clients are families. They're people with children and that have just fallen on hard times. So before they come to us, they may have been in another shelter, or they may have been couch surfing, which isn't healthy for children when they have to go to school. It's an unstable environment. So a lot of the people that we deal with are the unseen homeless, that a lot of individuals, I think, in North County don't realize that they're even there.
So the question is, does everyone who comes to Interfaith Shelter Network soliciting support, does everyone who comes through the door find an opportunity to be a part of the shelter network?
Well, the individuals that come into the network are screened. We work with 7 different case management agencies throughout the county, depending on which region the person is in. And so their first step is their referral to the case management agency, and a professional social worker will screen that individual, make sure that they're appropriate for the shelter. Because we're a family shelter, individuals that come through, they cannot have drug alcohol issues. They could not be chronically homeless. They just have to be someone who's fallen on hard times and is willing to work on their situation to get better. So they start with the screening, and then usually they receive a voucher to get into the program.
So offhand, do you remember the numbers that you have served over the course of at least last year? I know statistics are being formed for this year. Do you have a sense of the numbers of persons who have come and the number of persons who've been served?
Countywide, we served 264 individuals and families last season. So, and it's about even this season as well. So.
Our church participates in the shelter and have, at least in these last 2 seasons of rotation, seen young children, very, very young children. As a matter of fact, we, in our most recent rotation, served an infant. Do you see an increase in the number of small children that are being included in the network?
Yes, definitely. Over the past 3 years since I've been with the program, we have had several babies born while their family was in the shelter. Another thing we're seeing is an increase in single fathers with small children coming in. So the norm used to be single mothers, but now it seems like it's turned around and it's more single fathers.
Single fathers. And a national trend is that there are more and more young adults. Are we seeing that yet in our area?
Yes, that too. We have a lot of young adults that come through who have aged out of foster care and have not been able to get into programs. So they end up in our shelter, and then we try to transition them to something more permanent.
Bill, what is your work at Interfaith Shelter, and why do you do it?
Well, right now my primary focus is recruiting new churches. Our program only runs from maybe October till around April every year, and then all our shelters are shut down. Well, homelessness does not end at the end of April. It continues throughout the year. So my primary focus is to try to recruit more churches, and we're trying to get our shelters to have shelters year round.
And how is it that you came to do this work?
Well, originally, my local church that I'm a member of, my pastor came to me and he said, you know, we need to do more outreach to the homeless. He handed me the name of somebody at Interfaith Shelter, the phone number, and he said, make it happen. And so I called and we set up, and I became the coordinator for that local church. And I did that for about 15 years. And my desire to help even more has grown. So some other man has now taken over running of that church, and I'm now working with Interfaith Shelter.
It is a marvelous work, certainly more than needed. Certainly our heartstrings are tugged when we see homelessness face to face, and even more when we're able to spend time in relationship with persons who are quote unquote homeless. So perhaps we need to find another word, because that word itself has taken on such a connotation that sometimes people don't want to be close to persons that are claimed as homeless. But in the experience of sharing a meal, in the experience of offering space, in the experience of making sure that comfort is provided, relationship is formed. And even if it's only a short time, we get to see and hear and feel the heart of individuals who are suffering and who are in need. And so we want to thank Interfaith Shelter for being that network to step forth and bring us all together to focus on what we need to do together, and that is to make sure that the least of these have care. We'll return shortly with more conversation about Interfaith Shelter and the work of ending homelessness.
A lot of times the public doesn't understand that the homeless population are people just like you or I. They want to be recognized, they want to be acknowledged. A lot of time if they're on the streets, they haven't showered in days, their clothes are probably tattered, maybe they're not well groomed. People don't look them in the eye, people don't give them the time of day, they just walk right by.
They're living in cars, they're living outdoors, they are homeless and do not have a permanent address. And that's the population that we try to help in our rotational shelter program.
Every year you become so attached to each person individually, even though you know soon they're going to be out of your life.
Some of the characteristics I look for in a successful shelter guest are people who are proactive, who want to actually do something better with their lives. They have to recognize that maybe whatever they've done in the past isn't really working and it's time for a change.
So we set it up so that we rotate the meals, and one night it's Mediterranean or Persian or whatever from the Middle East, and next night it's Mexican, and the next night it's whatever anybody else happens to bring.
Then during the day, the guests leave the shelter site and look for work or housing or complete other tasks that the social worker who screened them before allowing them into the program gave them to accomplish.
It is our duty as Muslims to help the needy and the less fortunate. And also, we are part of San Diego, and it is our responsibility as San Diegans as well.
I think it's also important to recognize that we work not only with Christian congregations, but also with Jewish, Muslim, Unitarian, Baha'i, and other faith traditions.
Have you ever wondered if you're overwatering your plants? Too much water is wasteful and costs money. It's easy to figure out how much water your garden really needs. A watering calculator at bewaterwise.com provides a schedule tailored for your weather and plants, soil, and sprinkler type. You could save as much as 1,000 gallons a month by using the calculator and only watering your plants when they need it. Visit bewaterwise.com. Give your plants only what they need and save. Thank you for doing your part to save water.
Over here!
Did you know that the first person to fly faster than the speed of sound was Chuck Yeager back in 1947?
No.
I didn't think so.
It's fun to know history. Find curious facts from America's past at loc.gov, the Library of Congress website.
Welcome back to Faith and the Common Good. I'm your host, Pastor Harris. Today we're talking about the concept of ending homelessness. And our guests are Tanya Rome, who is the Rotational Shelter Program Coordinator at Interfaith Shelter Network. Along with her is Bill Zucconi, who is the Outreach Coordinator at the same agency. Welcome back, Tanya and Bill. Let's continue our reflections on the work that you do. And now I'd like you to share with us the impact of what you do. What have you seen in your experience with the shelter? Changes, transformational stories, anything that would help us understand the effectiveness of what you do. And either of you can respond to that.
Well, one piece that's really, I think, that helps our clients that come through a lot is the case management piece, because it's really a holistic approach to their issue. It's not just getting somebody who's homeless and putting a roof over their head. They can address other things with the case manager, such as finding work or maybe getting education, signing up for transitional housing or permanent housing. They can have health issues addressed. They can sign up for Medicaid. Whatever the issue that they have can be addressed with the case manager, and work with that person while they're in the shelter during their stay with us. So usually what we see when it comes to transformations, an individual will come in, or a family will come into the shelter, and they will be homeless, maybe sleeping in their car, have no income. Once they come into the shelter and start working with the case manager, they not only have a roof over their head, but they're able to shower and to look for work. Children can be signed up in school if they're not already in school. Medical problems can be addressed. And by the time they leave the shelter, they're in a better position to find permanent housing and have their issues addressed, you know, once they leave us.
So the matters of the needs of living itself, plus the emotional factor of building self-esteem and offering words of encouragement, all of that is part of the impact of the work that the Shelter Network offers. Bill, would you share your reflections?
Yes. Over the years, I've seen many of our guests come back another year because they've gotten back on their feet. They come back to the churches and say, we would like to volunteer, we would like to help. And that's quite amazing every time you see that happen. Also, a number of years ago, there was a gentleman who was in the program. He got a job, he got back on his feet. There was one particular church he really enjoyed. He became a member of that church, and he even became the congregational coordinator and was running the program at that church for a number of years. And currently we have, it's still a work in progress. We just had an individual gentleman in the program who got accepted to a very prestigious school, the California Institute of the Arts. All the final details haven't been worked out yet, but he's been accepted into a pretty prestigious program for 3 years, and when he comes out on the other end, he's going to have quite some skills that are out there.
I know that there's so many stories to share. Tanya, do you have another story of transformation?
Yes, I have one incredible story of a family of 6. It was a husband, wife, and 4 children who were looking for housing. We were trying to get them placed to transition out of the shelter, and they put in applications. A family of 6 is very hard to house in San Diego, but they did find an apartment, and at the apartment complex they spoke with the manager and found out that the manager of the apartment had also been a guest of Interfaith Shelter Network 10 years previous. So he understood the program and where the people were coming from and where they wanted to go, and he was willing to rent to them. So they got in permanent housing, and since that point the husband has returned to school and got a job with a communications company, and the family's doing great, and the manager is still there managing the complex. So it's sort of 2 success stories in one.
That's a very powerful story. It's a very powerful example of the impact, not only the physical impact, but the total impact that the Shelter Network has. And to you and to those who support, the congregations that support, the other volunteers that come in, certainly we are very grateful that this resource is available here in our area and throughout the county. What then are ways that churches can be involved? And as outreach coordinator, Bill, if you could respond to that.
Well, there's actually 2 ways churches can become involved. One, they could be a support congregation, which just simply means they work with and assist host congregations in the running of the shelter. Or the other way is to be a host congregation. And many of our churches that are host congregations started out as support congregations. And it seems like my fiddle has only one string, which is more churches, more churches, more churches. But I strongly believe in that. With our 7 different rotations, all it would take would be 26 churches in one particular rotation, and we would be going year-round. And I think that's very doable. And in the near future, we want to be year-round.
Surely. So in what ways do you have to invite churches to participate? What kind of information resources are available to churches if they're perhaps on the edge of making a decision?
Well, primarily what we do is we meet with them one-on-one. We sit down, we talk to them, we explain the program. And we try to encourage them. We do have some pamphlets, some information, but that's cold statistics. We would rather deal one-on-one with the churches.
Because it is a relational activity. It is a relational engagement all the way around, from beginning to end.
And also many of our churches that are host congregations, they're more than welcome for other churches to come and visit them while they are hosting, so they can see how the program actually works hands-on.
So that leads into the question of training. How are host congregations prepared to do their work?
Okay, we have an annual training that goes on once every year, which all coordinators are required to attend. And then we at the network will work with them, especially in their first year, a lot of one-on-one with them. Making sure that all the bases are covered, they're doing all the things they need to do in preparation, so that when they get the opportunity to open their doors, they're ready to go.
And so what kind of follow-up do you have at the conclusion of a shelter 2-week rotation? What kind of follow-up is there with each host site?
We have wrap-up meetings at the end of each rotation. Once it's ended, we get all the coordinators together in one meeting, and we sit and we talk about what happened during the season, as well as things that good came out of it, as well as things that didn't go so well, so that we can work on those issues for the next season. So there is actually 3 chances during the year for all host coordinators in a particular region to get together. We have our original orientation meeting, we have our annual training, and then we have the wrap-up meeting after the season ends. Yes. So and the coordinators really learn from each other. Yes. It's a good information exchange.
Yes. I have another question about perhaps the initial work that you did in getting cities to buy into the program. There are several cities who actually support you directly and or indirectly through federal fundings or through county funds, et cetera. How did you go about the work of getting cities to invest in the network?
Well, we invite city officials to come in and to actually see the shelter, which sometimes that takes time to do. A lot of times we don't get responses right away, but it seems like once we get somebody to come and see what the actual shelter, what it looks like, talk to the people that are there, sit and have dinner with them. After that, they seem to really buy in, because then they understand more of what the program is offering and who the individuals are that we're trying to help.
So then how do we get persons to volunteer? You've got a list of churches, a list of synagogues or temples that are involved in the work. How can an individual, other than a member of that faith entity, how can someone from the community volunteer to support the program? Or is that something that you encourage?
No, we have volunteers throughout the community. It's not just with the congregations. We have it on our website that we accept volunteers. Also, collaboratives that we have with other social service agencies also will give the information out that we need volunteers. Okay. I spoke briefly earlier about our workshops, our budget workshops, and our career workshops. Those individuals that run those workshops are not from the congregations. They are professionals who work out in the community and are volunteering their time to come in and teach our clients what they know to help them, give them a start to getting their lives back together.
Well, thank you for that. If there is one thing that you could leave for our congregations to hear, for our volunteers to hear, for those who are listening to this program to hear, what one thing would you want to impress upon them about either the network itself or the issue of ending homelessness?
Well, again, that goes back to, you know, my fiddle only has one string: more churches, more churches, more churches. But it's actually more than just that. It's a collaborative working together with social service agencies, the churches, governmental entities. It's everybody coming together and working as a team. This is the only way we're going to make an impact against homelessness.
Well, the concluding thought would be that about the ultimate ending of the concern itself, not only in this community but in other communities around the country as well as around the world. Can we ever, as a people, be able to say that no one has to live without shelter year-round, that no one has to live without the comfort and convenience of having a place to go to that they can call familiar to them, or can certainly call, if nothing else, home? Can we ever get to a point where we'll be able to say that we've put ourselves out of business because everyone has a safe place to live? And perhaps we, again, Bill, have to look at the broader connections. As long as our economy is such that there are persons who have lesser resource, as long as disaster happens or emergencies happen, perhaps we have to realize that there will probably always be someone who does not have a place to live. And so we continue the work of doing the best that we can to ensure, for the most that we can, the opportunity to live in a safe place and the freedom to continue to develop emotionally and spiritually and developmentally in ways that support themselves as well as community. I want to thank you both, Tanya and Bill, for being here today to talk about the issue. More, we want to thank you for your commitment to this work. We know it's very hard. We know that although you see change, you want to see even more change. So thank you for continuing to be the presence that you are in the place where you are as part of the Interfaith Shelter Network. We're so happy to know you, and we're grateful for the service that you offer to our communities.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. You're very welcome.
Certainly. You've been watching Faith and the Common Good, brought to you by North Coast United Methodist Church. Thank you for watching.